your life. You got this. Go chase it. Live your life. Enlighten you. Let the light shine through. Let enlighten you. Just see it through.
I'm Melissa Thrasher.
And I'm Lolita Cummings.
Welcome to Enlighten You, EMU's award-winning mental health podcast for students. On today's show, we're going to talk about one of the most serious issues related to mental health, one we hope you never experience. It's suicide ideation.
Unfortunately, we have some troubling statistics for this month's show. Consider this. More than 10% of college students consider suicide. Think about that for a second. That's 1 in 10. And when we dug a bit further, we found that there are approximately 1,100 deaths by suicide on college campuses each year. Many of you will be surprised to learn that suicide is the number 2 leading cause of death among college students. But sadly, some of you are not surprised by that at all, because we also found that 25% of you know someone who has died by suicide, and 40% of you know someone who has attempted suicide. That is really scary.
So today, we are grateful to have one of our own students share her story. Treasure Affia is an EMU junior double majoring in psychology and women's and gender studies. She's also a member of the mental health task force here on campus. We also have here with us Dr. Aesha Mustafa, a resident mental health expert, a licensed clinical therapist, and an assistant professor in EMU's Department of Leadership and Counseling. Treasure and Aesha, welcome to Enlighten You.
Treasure and Aesha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
So Treasure, I'm going to start with you. You're an international student from Nigeria.
Yeah.
What made you come, about 6,000 miles this way? What brought you here to EMU?
I came here for school. So in Nigeria, I was already in the university. I was in my 4th year, I think, as a law student. And then all of a sudden, I had this person reach out saying that I should come over. And I was like, that would be cool. And I wanted to do psychology, too. I didn't really like law. It's more like what my parents wanted.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't doing well in school on purpose. So I was like, yeah, I'll just give it a shot. And I checked best schools that offer psychology as a course, and EMU popped up. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's it. I'm just going to go there.
Go EMU, absolutely,
Yeah.
you popped up. So did you say you weren't doing well on purpose?
Yes. So the thing with Nigerian parents, I don't want to say African parents, although it's kind of there too, is that everyone has to do either medicine, engineering, or law. Because actually, in their defense, those are the only courses that you would actually find a job easily doing and make money. So my mom wanted me to do law as a course. I wanted to do mass communication or theater arts or psychology instead. But she was like, no, you have to do law. And psychology isn't a course that would actually earn you money in Nigeria, and it's upcoming. People don't believe in mental health and all that. So I would go to school and stay in class, but I wouldn't read for my examinations at all. I would just go into the exam hall and just wing it with what I know about the Constitution or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question, because you did just bring up medicine and law. I have a really good friend, as a matter of fact. She and I just vacationed together. It was amazing on self-care, which we'll do another time. But she's a physician, and she studied in Nigeria. And she said there it's more difficult because they're trying to weed you out. They're not trying to help you succeed. Did you find that to also be true there?
Not to give them this picture, but for the professors that we have there, it's more there's this saying that they say, A is for God, B is for me, C is for the good ones, and then you all can share the remaining grades. So it's more if you are not there, it will be hard to get an A in that course. So they're trying to kind of make it hard for you because it was hard for them.
Got it.
So that just it's not that easy. I didn't talk to my professors. I kind of avoided them totally, and I wasn't even doing well. So everyone knew that when they brought out the roster, my name's at the bottom. So yeah, they actually tried to weed you out.
So when you came here, I I think our professors have the exact opposite mindset when it comes to your success. That had to be pretty gratifying. And
Yes, it was. I am not very good at maths, which is why I couldn't do psychology in Nigeria too, because it's more of a science course than like a social science course. So you have to like pass maths in your state, like your national examination, which kind of like guarantees if you're going to go into university. And I had an F, very much expected. So when I came over here, I was worried that I wouldn't do well in maths. So I was also worried that my professor would be like the ones I had back home. But then I was shocked during my test when he said, oh, that he's going to give everyone a formula sheet. And I was like, isn't that cheating? And I had another friend in that class. She's also Nigerian, although she grew up here. And she was like, I know you think it's back home, but no, it's not. And I was like, okay. And then during the test, it was really, really relieving to be able to look at the formulas and like work on them, because I could work the questions. I just wouldn't be able to like cram the formulas in my head, which is something we have to do back home. And I really don't want to do that. So I would just like fail and just so be it.
well, I'm glad that you found a different approach and that you are enjoying it and doing well here. So welcome. Yeah.
Ah, that's awesome. Awesome story. Before I ask the next question, because I'm not a math person either, I hate math. That's why I'm in public relations. But what attracted you to our psychology program? What do you like so much about psychology?
I would say due to personal experiences, I got intrigued with mental health. I remember always having to like tell people like and just to like pitch in, I was bullied in school. So that also is what spurred me on to like getting into mental health advocacy. And when the first thing was actually coming here to, because you need to do like a pre-law degree. So that was the first thing in mind with my parents. Come do psychology and then go do law.
Oh,
So I just picked psychology because it felt like it was going to be the easiest for me, because I would like what I was doing. I needed to like the course to actually pass it. So I picked psychology instead. So that was why I picked psychology. But then after the first semester, I told my mom that you're going to have to either give birth to another kid to get you a lawyer, or you're just going to have to do with a psychologist.
And she's dealing with a psychologist
Very
now?
much so. She loves it now.
Good. That's good. I'm glad you found your passion and you're working in your purpose. That's wonderful. So when you landed here, when you got over here in Michigan, things were going right accordingly. So in your living situation, thinking about that, what changed? What happened?
So I came here because a relative of mine asked me to come over, that they wanted to rekindle. So just a little backstory without like giving too much. I grew up with, for the context of this, my mom and my stepfather. But my stepfather has been there for me, I think, since 6 months old. So like he's always been in the picture. I've never like questioned him or anything, and I never really like felt the absence of another person, because he's always been my father. So my biological father, who I've never met and who is dead, his sister reached out saying that she wanted to connect with me and that she would love for me to come over to the US for school. And we talked about it, and then I did come over. The first month was really good. I was seeing America for the first time. It didn't get dark until 11 p.m. I was so happy with the sun. And then just exploring things, going to the dollar store, realized I could buy like a pan for $1. That was really good. But then along the line, things started getting iffy. Just I started getting complaints of like I was being sad so much. So it kind of got to the point where we couldn't stay in the same house anymore. And she kind of like pushed me out. So I became on my own, technically, in a new country. My parents are like 6,000 miles away, like she said, and I was here alone.
So when you moved out, obviously you had to fend for yourself. How was it, being off on your own?
It was hard. I remember I didn't think I would have to leave her place because we'd always like talk about me going to U of M for masters or something like that. Or it started slowly, from getting complaints like you're not laying the bed pretty well to you were not allowed to take books upstairs. That was a rule in her house, and I understood, but I was new here and Michigan is cold.
Oh, yes.
And although I did come in the summer, she had like, her house was like really chilly. My room was always warm. I don't know why, but that was good.
Yes.
So I would want to take my books upstairs to read, but she wouldn't allow that. So I had to like start taking pictures of my books and then take my phone to my room to read. So that started, but I kind of like ignored it because I felt like she's having someone new, so she's still getting used to it. And the part about me being quiet, I am not a quiet person at all. But in certain situations, I like to keep to myself, and I'm an introvert with people like I don't know at all, and I was just getting used to her. So I was always inside, kind of like quiet till someone asked me a particular question, then I would answer you. But for some reason, that started like getting her upset. And like I said, I've always been my stepdad, so he's my father. He's the daddy I know and everything. So she would ask a question, a very tricky question like, "Who do you love the most?" or "Who's your dad?" or something like that. And I would talk about my father, of course, because that's the only person I know. And I started noticing that when I say that, she would get angry. And I was too naive to kind of like lie and be like, "Oh, your brother is the one." Yeah, I don't know this person, so I cannot claim them. So all those things started. And before I knew it, she just, I used to go back to her house every weekend. I live on campus because of my scholarship. But I go back to her house every weekend then. And one weekend, she was just like, the next day, she was like, "Oh, pack your bags, I'm going to go back to school." And I was like, okay, because it was just my duffel bag for the weekend. So like, okay, cool. I went back. And then I told my mom something was going on. I wasn't sure what, but something's going to happen. And then my mom called me a few days later and was like, "Oh, she said you should leave her house and find somewhere else to stay." So she brought my things back to school. I can remember the time very well. She brought my things to school, seized my phone that she got from me because she got most of the things I came here with. She said I shouldn't come with anything. She's going to get everything. So after that happened, I was pretty stranded. And the hall I was in as a freshman closed during the breaks. So I and my mom, we frantically looked for someone. My mom had a friend who had a friend who had a friend in Houston.
Okay.
And she was super kind to pay my flights, give me a place to stay. And she kept her house open to like always come there. So I do have her if I want to go stay somewhere. And also at the time I had a boyfriend who was really, really helpful.
Good.
So
Okay.
I also had where to stay as well with him during the summers too.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm sorry you went through that. Yeah.
So all of this happened right around the Christmas break, right? The holiday break.
Yes.
So the dorms closed. You didn't have a place to stay, and so you're scrambling, and your mom was able to find someone for you to stay with in Texas, right? Can you tell us emotionally what that? Because I can't imagine being in a foreign country and other than the dorms feeling like you didn't really have a place to stay, that you were not welcome. And at this point, you didn't have a huge support system around you. What was that like for you? What was your mental state like?
It was very bad. I remember immediately after it happened, just to give context. So there's this thing that parents do when I was a kid. You want to like follow them out and they're like, "Okay, go wear your slippers, go wear your shoes." And by the time you're back, they're gone. So that was what happened to me. So when she took the phone, I had all my things in there, my PIN, my Canvas ID, everything. And I had the exam, my math exam the next day, my math exam. And I was like, "Please, just let me take these things out. And then you can get the phone back. I don't mind." And she's like, "Okay, go drop your bags and come back. And I'll give you the phone to take it out." And I did go in and I came back and her car was gone. And in that moment, I was panicking because I had a math exam the next day. So I was heading to the campus police to like let them know what happened. But I didn't get there because I woke up in an ambulance. So I, at that point, had collapsed. I didn't know how, but I woke up crying in the ambulance, asking for my mom. And I'm pretty sure that the paramedic there was like, "What is she saying?" Because at that point, I switched to my tongue. And I was like, "Get my mom." I started calling out the number, like, "Call my mom for me." And like, it was like, "Are you okay? Did you hit your head?" And I was like, I just want to get my mom. And I even tried, when I went to the hospital, they had like the phone. And I went to the wall and I was like typing in the number. And I tried and it was like, it was not going. And I'm like, how do I call an international number from here? So it was really, really overwhelming. I became mentally ill from then. I had issues with, I was always scared going out. And anywhere I saw an older woman who looked like her, I would instantly have a panic attack. So I couldn't go to stores. I couldn't visit Walmart because we were always going there. I couldn't go to Maya. I couldn't get my pants for $1.25 anymore because we were always going to the dollar store. So I was like always ordering things, or like having the friend I finally made after I left her house like get stuff for me. So it was really, really overwhelming. And my mom, out of my parents, my mom is like the strongest one. We have a nickname for her. So she's like the one who doesn't like show emotions too much. And my dad is the one that we're hurt. He's like, oh my God, are you okay? And stuff like that. So, but then after this happened, my mom was always crying on the phone. Aww. And that broke my heart so much because I'm like, why are you crying? You're supposed to like be the one telling me don't cry, like stuff like that. And after this happened, my family finally believed in mental health. So I would say it was like two sides of a coin. I mean, before they wouldn't take such things seriously, but after that, I would have my cousins, my aunties call me and like try to like make me smile or laugh so I wouldn't like go into depression. They didn't know I was already like dipped down there already. So it was really overwhelming.
So let me ask you a question for something you just said, and I'm really sorry about all of that because like honestly I can't even imagine having to deal with everything that you did. But I have two questions for you. The first one, you just said your family didn't believe in mental health, but what you experienced convinced them that it was a legitimate illness or concern. Is that true of most Nigerians, or is it very specific to your family?
It's true of most Africans, true of most Nigerians. That is why psychology as a course is like really down there. People don't think they should go see a therapist, especially when you need to pay money to do that. So I'm like, why do I need to pay money to tell you my problems? And I don't know, what are you going to do for me? My problem is I probably need money. Are you going to give me the money? Or I need food. Are you going to give it to me? So it's like, people are like, they can talk to people about what's going on with them. But when there's that tag, mental health, they don't want to associate with it. And if you're depressed, the nearest adult would probably be like, you're not depressed in Jesus' name, or stop saying you're depressed in Jesus' name. So that's like always the thing there. And so, but after what happened with me, my family like kind of understood what it actually was and like started taking things like that seriously. And also what happened with me also informed my family about ADHD. I don't have that, but I do have a sibling who I suspect she might be, and I wanted them to get like a diagnosis for her or something. So after that, my mom was very open to anything I was saying. I'm like, I think she needs to go see. She's like, yeah, sure, she needs to go see one. I'm like, yeah, that's good. So yes,
That's good. So out of this crisis of yours, it helped to change the mindset of not everyone, but of your family member, and that's amazing. So was this also the time that you had thoughts of suicide?
Yes, this was also the time. I remember coming back from the hospital that night. I didn't have a phone to call anyone. Although she did drop a Samsung something, I can't remember what phone that was. So, but I couldn't connect with anyone because no one had that number anymore. So I did have an iPad that she got for me, and I was lucky she didn't take that because that was in my room at the time. So I somehow, I don't know how, was able to use WhatsApp, which is what I used to connect with people back home, to call a friend back home. And I was like, please call my mom, tell her that something is really wrong with me. And then I gave him the new number I had. So that was how I was able to like talk to someone from back home. So it was just like it was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot,
Yeah. So obviously, just hearing her story, you were in a lot of distress, right? So for our audience watching, what is suicide ideation? How do people feel when they're experiencing it? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to thank you for sharing your story, because that is a lot of trauma, the abuse you experience of someone controlling what you can do. And, it started off as like, okay, it's her house. She doesn't want books upstairs. That's odd. And my familiarity with West African culture, granted, it's not a monolith, is respecting your elders. It's her house. Okay. Like, that's weird. Okay. And so with suicidal ideation, some folks have passive thoughts. So what if I'm driving and the car just the car hits you, it just veers over. Like, I didn't take any action. What if I just didn't wake up tomorrow? Like, that would be okay. And then you can move into active is, I have thoughts of wanting to harm myself. And then there's planning. So this is when folks think about a method. They may think about what they have access to, buying things, tying up loose ends of maybe closing accounts, adding a family member to a financial account, getting rid of objects. And for folks, this is not always, there's not always folks experience this. And sometimes with suicidal intention, it can happen out of nowhere. Something bad happened yesterday. This wasn't on anyone's radar.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Treasure, I saw you nodding your head. Where were you on that spectrum? What did you experience?
I was on the God should call me home, or I should probably just be walking, crossing the road, and then a car just comes from and just swipes me off the road. I didn't really want to actively do anything because I didn't want to like feel the pain myself, and I didn't want my parents or my family back home to believe I actively like did something to myself. So I was always like hoping that I would be in dangerous situations where something would like actually go wrong with me. I would just be on the road in between two people fighting and then shut off by a stray bullet or something. Yeah.
And for some folks, it's not that they want to die. They don't want to be in pain anymore. And so I think that's important to understand that it's complicated for folks. It's, you know, it's not that they don't want to live, but they're like, what's worth living for? Like, you're completely isolated. There's no communication, which is like a way to control someone when you remove objects because they bought them for you. And then being like, you know, it's winter break, folks are leaving, it's the happy holiday time, and you don't have that experience. And it sounds like it was your first.
Yeah, my first Christmas away from home, because Christmas back home is epic. It's filled with laughter, parties. We call it knockouts. Here, I think it's fireworks. Back home we call it knockouts.
Knockouts, okay.
So here it's fireworks. So like all that, doing none of that. And we don't exchange gifts back home like they do here. But everything else we do doesn't even make that like significant for us, because like we're partying, we're going to church, we're going out, we're like seeing family and all that. Everyone is coming together. And I've always been an extended family. So I have had my cousins live with us. So it's always like a full house. My auntie comes over with her kids. So like everyone is always there. But during this time, it was just me. And although I did find a place to stay, she had 2 children who were like my age. So that was also good. And something really, really nice that they did for me was that they included me in their gift giving. I didn't have anything to give anyone, but I got a gift that Christmas. And that was really, really nice. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm also glad that you felt comfortable to talk to your mom, the matriarch of your family, and you had someone to talk to about what you were dealing with and friends at home. So that's really good. When I hear her story, I think about some of the celebrities that we've lost, Twitch, the dancer, and there was a comedian, I can't think of his name, that passed, but no one assumed that something was wrong because they masked it really well, right? So what are some of the myths, misconceptions that are out there for people dealing with this?
So something you had talked about is like the myth that there's like some people a demonic spirit on you. So if you need to pray that away, or what do you have to be depressed about? It's like there has to be something wrong that you may want to end your life. And so some folks, life is, they have relationships, they have a job, they have healthcare, but chronic pain, sometimes financial instability, job instability. The thought that something could go wrong can be really difficult for folks. And so there's a lot of stigma around that in different communities. And so I think it's important to understand, like, there's nothing wrong with you because you have a thought of ending your life.
That's key.
And that's just a key to remind yourself that that's not a failure of yourself.
Yeah, not a failure. Yep. I think that's key for people.
So once
to
you
know.
came back after Christmas, how did you start to feel better? You know, what started to change, and how long did that take for you, and what was it like for you? I mean, because I know it's not instantaneous, right? It's something that has to happen over time. But what was helpful for you?
So about me getting better, I didn't exactly get better till last summer.
And
After I
that's
got a
a couple
job.
years later?
Yeah, that's a couple years later. But around that time, like I said, my boyfriend was really helpful. When I came back, he would always give me like $50 every week
Oh,
to like
that's
get
a nice
food stuff.
boyfriend.
And then I was a friend of the Swoops pantry. So the pantry was really helpful.
Swoops?
Yeah, Swoops pantry. So I
Shout out to
I got
Swoops.
my first winter boot from there. I got a jacket from there as well, and I got food stuff from there. Because I couldn't eat on campus anymore. And I told her about that, but she was like, "You're gonna be fine. Just do it." And so that was really strange because I told her that I'm always in the bathroom every time because I'm not used to the food yet. And she's like, yeah, just manage it. People have been here and they're not dead, stuff like that. And she alienated me from people from Nigeria or Africa. She's like, why are you coming? Why are you living in Nigeria and coming here and making friends with Nigerians again? And I found that weird. So it was really hard. I also did have a friend. She would always cook and then tell me to come over to eat. So that was also really helpful. I think those were the things that like kind of like grounded me for some time. At that time, my mom was like taking out loans to help me pay. So she did help with the first 2 years of school before she ran out of like places to borrow money from and stuff. She owns a school back home, but at the time she wasn't really having a lot of students coming in, so the money wasn't coming in that much. She was just like trying to do what she could, and then the exchange rate was really against us. It was rising. It's like 4 times what it was now. So it was like really, really hard then. But the people who, apart from my family, of course, people who grounded me here was the woman in Houston, then my boyfriend and the friend I had in school as well. So at least having food to eat, having a place to stay was good. And during the summer of that year, because I needed a place to keep my things, that friend let me like keep my stuff at her place, and another friend as well. So like having some of those things off my back kind of like helped me. And it was really good that all this happened, and then people that I'm not even related to helped me, because when I went to Maryland that year for the summer, this woman who I've never seen before from a different tribe, not the same, she's from Nigeria too, but we're different tribes, all of them different tribes. They were all really helpful. I did go to them for the spring break first before the summer, and I came back with about $500 that I didn't expect. Everyone just gave me money, and that was really, really helpful at that time. I had a place to stay. I stayed here for 4 months. I didn't pay a dime. I was eating food free, and she was always like feeding me too much too. So well, she was really,
Can't say no.
right. And she loved to cook. So like it was just, she's cooking and I'm eating, and I'm like, yeah. It was really good. Those things were helpful. Those people were helpful too.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like community is what really got you over the hump.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about community? Because I feel it's so important, especially when you're, 6,000 miles away. And I know that your aunt felt a little bit differently about you keeping your friends close and making new friends. That's what she hoped that you would do. But can you talk about why it's so important for you?
Yeah, it was, I later found out that it was so important. At the time, we do have an African Student Association on campus, and I couldn't be part of them because I wasn't always around. They had their meetings Fridays, and she was like, you must be home on Fridays. And I was like, can I just join? She was like, nope, you're going to be home on Fridays. So I didn't have people around, but after this happened and I was no longer indebted to her like anything, I could go to those meetings, meet people. I made friends there, and then having my boyfriend introduce me to these people in Maryland was really, really helpful, because it felt like I had another mother figure here. I also had a father figure too, and he was the one like who got me the job I was working during the summer. So having those people around, having people I could go to their houses when I was over there in Maryland, they would call to check in on me, I would call to check in. Just having someone I could talk to from my mom was really helpful, because back home we're very close-knit in community. My neighbor knows my name down to the schools I went to, down to everything. We're very close. On Saturday mornings, they come to our houses to eat and stuff like that. So having that kind of thing reenacted here again was really, really helpful to pull me out of that place. So like community was really, really important. And I always tell international students I meet who are like from similar countries as I was, or countries where community is very close in it. I'm like, that is the one thing you have to look out for. Don't listen to anybody that tells you you're in America, you have to like detach yourself. You can learn about the cultures here, but you should juxtapose that with your own culture and like not just detach yourself totally, because I made the mistake of doing that and I kind of paid for it like the first few months after that happened. So
Yeah, I'm glad you found your community.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. It sounds like you have a wonderful community that is so supportive of you. When you were going through such difficult times, obviously you felt differently. I'm assuming you had some anxiety, some depression.
Yeah.
Aesha, how do we know that could someone who didn't necessarily know you, for example, someone in class, would they have known that there was something wrong with you?
No.
Or did you look
I
right?
was always bubbly in class. I'm
Yeah.
taking notes. I'm taking pictures. I'm smiling. My group projects, I'm like very there. But then when I go back, I'm locked in my room and
Then you masked it. And then in private, how would we know someone's in trouble?
You may not know. I mean, because if someone's masking it, or sometimes someone may just feel more alive around other people, but then when they get home, they're completely isolated. For folks, like if there are showing symptoms, you ask questions like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" It's like, "I don't know, nothing matters." It's like, okay, that's an interesting comment. And sometimes we don't want to say, "Hey, are you having thoughts of harming yourself or others?" Because we have this fear of putting that thought in someone's head. And my training as a resident advisor back in the day is you're not going to put the thought in someone's head. And so being very direct with that question, not skirting around it. Hey, are you looking forward to tomorrow? Just like, are you having that thought? And so one of the common misconceptions that everyone who has suicidal ideation or attempts is depressed or anxious. And like, I get why that is, because people say the word like, I'm depressed. Use a term, I don't want to say loosely, but the major depression disorder is actually have a certain amount of symptoms for 2 weeks. And so if like that's how you get the diagnosis of depression or anxiety. So if someone doesn't have that for 2 weeks, then in the medical system, they wouldn't have been depressed, even though like, colloquially we're like, yes, that person was experiencing depression. But, if someone loses their job yesterday, they're not, and they all of a sudden have all these symptoms pop up, they're not going to meet the criteria. And so recognizing that things can happen in the blink of an eye and to check on folks when like their patterns change, like this things seem a little different.
And at that time, did you have anyone on campus that you could reach out to?
Not really.
No.
The only person I used to talk to at the time was my boyfriend and my mom made a point of contact to like call me every single day. It was annoying at first, but I got used to it because I understand what she was trying to do. So they were the only 2 people I used to talk to. I wasn't very close with that friend who used to give me food yet. I was just like getting to know her at that time. But later on, she also became another pillar of support for me because I could comfortably tell her when something was going on with me. And she was really wise for her age. Yeah, she was good.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I mean, it's the community because they're the ones who are going to probably see the difference in you instead of just that isolation where you are suffering in silence. Good. I'm glad you're better. And now you're helping others.
Yes, I am. So after that happened, the first thing I did was become a crisis text line ambassador and also become a crisis text line counselor. So I would always when I felt a particular way, I would just go online and just log onto the platform and help people. That happened for about a year, although it was kind of in and out because I was also having my periods as well. But then after that happened around last year, I started an NGO officially that just suicide prevention awareness, education, mental advocacy for people around my age group and also younger. Because even though this what happened here was the nail on the head, or the thing that enlarged it for me, I also went through stuff at that time that I wasn't really comfortable telling anyone. And most young girls my age then, we didn't like our moms because we felt like they were just too strict. But growing up, I realized that she was actually doing stuff the best way she could, and she was actually really helpful. And I was just scared for nothing because I could have told her all these things, but I just felt like I couldn't at that time. So what my NGO does is...
You said an NGO?
Yes, it's an NGO. It's called Bloomsfare Foundation for Mental Health Awareness.
Okay.
So it's basically going to schools, talking to students about these things that happen. Because something I really faced at the time was bullying. I switched schools a lot. I went to 4 high schools. And the first one was because it closed down. The second one was because I was bullied and I claimed to be things I was not. And then the third one, I was there for a while, but my mom changed me because she wanted me to write my national exams on my own. some schools do help students. She didn't want anyone to help me and stuff like that. So I left there. When I was in that school, I was always fighting every day. I would go to school. My parents didn't believe I used to fight because, like she said, masking. And I did that very well. I would go to school well dressed. When I got to the gate, I'm taking my shoes off, wearing what we call the sleepers, and just looking like a ruffian in school. And I'm fighting with every boy that crosses my path. And I always had this thing where I say, I don't fight girls, I beat you. So I was always fighting. So when I left that school, I decided to be a changed person. I didn't want to fight anymore. So I feel like I let myself be bullied in my last year of high school, which is like supposed to be the time where you're like happy to go into university and stuff like that. But I was dreading going back to school every day. And I couldn't tell my mom because she would be like, well, you're a senior. Why are you being bullied? Like, so like, it would be weird. And it was weird that I was being bullied by juniors, my mates, and seniors alike. So, that is something that I make a point. That was our very first outreach topic, bullying, because it's very common. And in some schools in Nigeria, it's seen as a rite of passage, which it should not be. So we like really hammering on that this is what happens and you should be comfortable telling someone. And something that we also plan to do is talking to the teachers, because I didn't trust any of my teachers because they couldn't be trusted. I went to a religious school in the last year, and I came from a different denomination. So I'm Catholic, and in this school it's mostly what we call Protestant. So I would say Pentecostal kind of. And they have this image that Catholics worship idols and stuff. I don't argue whatever is right for you. My family is not so religious. We're like cool and all. And my parents weren't the kind of parents that would suck up to the school authorities just to like get me in good grades and stuff like that. And I didn't do that either, because the students would be like, teacher, today I had a dream that the Lord spoke to me or something like that. God didn't tell me nothing, and so I can't lie about it. And so that kind of like kept me outside of like the out there in school because of that. So my teachers also didn't like me. And I did have a particular teacher, something happened, and she was praying for me, and she was like, Lord, even though I do not like this girl, do this. And I was like,
That was her prayer?
oh, God, answer that, but okay. I mean, and I didn't like her for anything. And till now, I still like have some form of hatred towards them that I'm trying to resolve. So we want to like also talk to the teachers as well, let them know that you are the first point of contact with these people, because I went to a boarding school, so I was in school most of the time that I was at home. So you are the parent at this time, and you should be able to be trusted by these students, because we would have school counselors that we would talk to, but then before you know it, your story is out there to someone else. You would hear another student saying something that you told the teacher in confidence. So that is something that we are also working on, kind of like stopping for people, because mental health is really bad in Nigeria. We have people who are schizophrenic, and we just call them mad people that probably did something demonic. So that's like the stigma towards them. Someone is on the road talking to themselves and they're like, oh, that's a mad person. She probably sacrificed someone and then the gods are after her or something like that. And it took a lot for me going back. When I went back home in December for the first time, anytime we passed a mad person on the road, I'm like, that's not a mad person. That's a schizophrenic. That's not a mad person. Stop saying that. That's a schizophrenic person who's going through something and stuff like that. So that's something that I'm actively working to change. And then talking to the teachers, like letting them know that they're the first point of contact, because most schools in Nigeria are boarding schools. So we go to school like for how many times in a year? We're like only home for like maybe a month or 2 weeks or something like that. So we're like in school most of the time, and having these people understand that these things happen, and that we can trust them to tell them that something is wrong. Because so many times I went through stuff, but I couldn't tell any teacher because they were just as good as not being there and stuff like that. I personally couldn't tell them because I also wasn't like the ideal type of religious student they would prefer. So that was also very hard. And I couldn't tell my parents either because I felt like my mom wouldn't understand and she would just be overly strict on me at the time. So I also bottled that up. So we're doing outreach for that as well, just letting people know that this is going on, letting them understand. And our first outreach was actually really successful. I run it from here. My mom was like handling that for me. So she was like, oh, that they really wanted to talk to you. They really wanted to like get your phone number and like ask you so many questions. And they're like, oh, they want to hear like stuff about things like sexual abuse and all that. So I'm like, definitely we're gonna do that again for them.
Wow. I am so inspired by you and all the great work that you're doing. And you said you're running this organization, the NGO, from here.
Yes, I'm running it from here.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Yeah, congratulations to you. So you have another organization that you're also involved in too.
Yes, I have two. The first one is mental health, and the second one is women empowerment, but focusing from a feminist perspective. Unfortunately and sadly, femicide is really high in Nigeria, and we chalk up a lot of things to religion and demons. So a girl goes missing, or a girl goes out with a guy, and she winds up dead or at the back of an alley somewhere. And the next thing you're hearing is, well, she should have stayed back home. She's fooling the rich guys. They probably use her for rituals to get more money. So like in January alone, I'm on Twitter in Nigeria, and I have a bookmark folder where I bookmark cases of violence against women. And in general, I think I had over 20 something, because I was going through it yesterday. I'm like, oh, okay. So the second NGO is focusing on these things from a feminist perspective. So we have a book club, a literary magazine, and the women empowerment sector of it. The book club is more so to introduce them to things I've learned from here, because I'm also double majoring in women and gender studies.
Right.
So I am open. I have come to learn a lot of things that I didn't know before. So this is something that I want to introduce to them to understand. And also the term feminist is seen as a slur kind of in Nigeria. So if a guy wants to say something like, oh, you're a feminist, and then it's you're some kind of iffy person. So that's something that I also want to let these women understand, that you're not a bad person being a feminist. You're actually working towards the betterment of your own life, because there's so many laws against women now in so many places, things that we thought we had moved past, but then they're being repealed all over again. So this is not something that you should actually think is some kind of trend. It's actually a serious thing. So I'm managing those two from here. I have volunteers for the mental health one. I also have volunteers for the feminist organization as well, and they're doing a really good work. The feminist one is kind of pretty new, so we're still launching in. And the mental health one is more offline than it is online, because we do more outreach, go to villages and see students there as well. So it's something I did because of how I felt, and I kind of came to understand a lot of things that people may not know on surface level. So having to do all that, having to be able to help people with these organizations is really good.
Yeah, you are a true treasure. I can definitely say that. And again, I'm so inspired, and I'm curious to find out, what do you plan to do after you graduate? Are you planning to operate those long term?
Yes, I'm planning to operate both of them long term, and even go as far as opening offices in person that we can see people. My first plan coming here was to study psychology, probably do school psychology, and then go back to manage my mom's school. That is still in the books, but I'm focused more now on being a clinical psychologist. So since psychology is new, you have to be at the top to actually get recognition back home. So I want to get there. So when I get all these things, I can actually go back home to implement them and make this organization a full blown and everything, and have offices in different states and all that. So yeah.
Wow, I can't wait to watch you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressive how you use that adversity, and you used it to help yourself, but also to help so many other people. One of the things that we didn't talk about is therapy. Did you see a therapist during the time when you were having such difficulty?
Before the thing happened, I kind of had an inkling. So I did go to see a therapist. That particular therapist was just not she was very detached from my reality, because I remember telling her that I'm scared I will go back home because I can't pay my school fees and stuff. I don't have the money to. And she was like, oh yeah, sure, you can just take a gap year back home. And I'm like, I can't go back home because I left a fourth year student. I didn't transfer because we're on strike at the time I left. So going back means starting over from year one again, and I will not be able to be a psychology student because it's a science course back home. She's like, yeah, you can just do a gap year and then come back here. And I'm like,
And visa issues,
it's not very easy to get visa, and Nigerians, I'm a Nigerian, and it's hard for people from my country to get visas to certain places because of certain stereotypes. And I'm like, it's not that easy. You don't know how I celebrated when I got my visa before coming here. We threw a party because I got a visa to cover school. So imagine me going back and having to go through all that again. She was like, yeah, just go for 1 year and come back. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just find someone else. So I did find someone else in Maryland that I was talking to, and because there's this thing with like the state and the licenses, I had to like be seeing different people at different times. If I was here in Michigan, I would see someone else. So yeah, I did see a few therapists. A few of them were really helpful with like giving me some homeworks to do and stuff like that. And then I finally worked up to actually seeing a psychiatrist so I could get a full diagnosis and probably get medications to manage if I needed that, which I did get in the end. But yeah.
Good. Well, I'm so glad that you
You bring up a good point about the fit with a therapist of do they understand what you're going through? Because I think on one hand, advice of taking a gap year and releasing the pressure you have on yourself is great. And also that is not the reality of getting a visa. Lots of folks have to do it 6 months in advance. Show how much money you have in the bank account. Get a letter. Have a sponsor. Go to the embassy that's 4 hours away. It is not. Yeah, it is.
I had to go to a different state to go to the embassy.
Help folks get visas from here from Ghana. It is not the simple thing. Show you have ties back home that you're not going to stay here past the visa. Like it's a lot. And so I think finding the fit that works for you and what that looks like is sometimes you don't know. And like you made a great point with therapists, we're licensed in our state. So Ph.D. level psychologists, the laws have changed where they can go across maybe like 30 states in our collective. But I am currently only licensed in Michigan. So if my client is out of the state at the time of the appointment, I can't see them. And so that's the issue of how do you get support when you go back home and it's going to be challenging or is it going to be great and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because when I went back to Nigeria, I wanted to see my therapist, but then there's a time difference and I'm like, would she be able to do this? Because I mean, Nigeria, we don't like have so many stringent laws, because if you're like a psychologist or a lawyer in one state, you automatically can do that in other states as long as you like move there or something like that. But can I like talk to her from here? But then it was like, I wasn't so sure. So I tried seeing someone there, but then it was worse because they were like telling me I should go talk to God. And I was like, you know what, just forget it. I'm just going to go back and see who I need to see. Yeah. So yeah, there was that too.
Good. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to get the help that you need and that you're better and not just better for yourself. Like I said, you're making other people better too. So thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are again almost out of
I
time.
was ready for my next question. No, I'm just playing. Right.
Bless you, girl. Good. Any last words from either of you?
So mine is mainly for the international students because we do have a lot of them on EMU, and EMU is really helpful, very welcoming, very different from so many other schools. And I tell people like the things that we do here, they're like, oh, my school doesn't really do that. I'm like, yeah, sorry for you, just come here. So they're really helpful with all of that. We have like all this resources and everything. And something I would really advise to international students is to join orgs. Like, I was like, nah, that's not relevant, but until I joined one. And I am the vice president of the African Students Association now. I've been for the past year. So it's like really good coming to see all these people sing from different tribes. My tribe we're not really so much in Michigan. But then it's not that bad because I can talk to the other people and we're like just one. And there's this thing with Nigerians, I don't know about other countries. We love to see ourselves everywhere. So where we see one person like, oh, you're in Nigeria, oh my God, that's so great. And then we're like, before you know, we're exchanging food and stuff like that. So community is very, 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 very important as an international student because you're away from home, you're away from what you know, people you know. Because I did have friends back home, but we don't talk as much anymore because of the time difference. And they are in law school now. Unfortunately for me, they graduated. So they're like going to become lawyers very soon. And having people here that you can talk to, having people that understand what you're going through at the time. And it's not that you can't make friends with people of other like countries, nationalities and something, but you should like balance it because they will not understand what you're going through at the time. Like I often communicate with Nigerians in what we call pidgin English. So it's not like broken English. And it's hard for me to speak English every day, every time. I'm like, I just want to branch it out. But if I say something, they might not know what I'm saying. So just having to be able to balance all that is something that's really important. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is excellent advice that you're sharing for international students. Thank you so much. Aesha.
I want to bring up, you'd worked on crisis lines, and so we will drop some resources of national hotlines you can call if you're feeling in crisis, you're going to hurt yourself. And it's really important that different lines offer different things. So there's a national line you just call 988. There's lines we'll drop in that specialize in working with folks who are LGBTQIA, LGBTQIA youth, Black folks, East Asian. And what's important is different lines will have different rules. So some of the ones we'll drop will say, we will not contact the police or ambulance without your consent. Because it can be scary if you're going to call someone, you're like, well, what are they going to do? What if I want to end the call just because like I got what I needed, I feel calm. And so making sure that you feel safe to make that call and ask for help, because it's scary. You don't know the person on the other line. And like, Treasure may not always be there. And like, but we have other folks that can help.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you both so much. I have enjoyed this conversation, and Melissa's right. You truly are a treasure. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for watching this month's show. As we said at the beginning of the show, suicide is one of the most important topics related to mental health. We hope you learned something today that can help save your life or the life of someone you love.
That's right, Melissa. So please, memorize the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline number. It's just 3 digits, 988. You can call or text those numbers any time of the day or night. There are always trained, compassionate mental health professionals ready and willing to get you the help you need. Whether you have thoughts of suicide, or you are in a mental health crisis or substance abuse crisis, or any other kind of a mental health distress, they're always standing by to help. Please call, text, or chat them today. 988. We wish you well.